What's up guys, it's Joe from DIY Cold Plunge. This video is all about insulation and what types to use and stay away from. So first, before we dive into the different types of insulation, I just want to answer the question, why insulate to begin with? Because you don't necessarily have to. Insulating will essentially keep your water colder longer. That will, if you're using ice, reduce the amount of ice you need to use, whether that's refrozen packages or water bottles or buying bags of ice over and over again. And it will also reduce the wear and tear on your chiller, which is the most expensive component of building a DIY cold plunge. So yes, you can get away with not insulating your setup, but I highly recommend it just for those reasons alone. When I first started my DIY cold plunge channel over on TikTok, I did a test in the Minnesota summer, and I get a lot of grief for saying Minnesota summer. But during the hottest part of the year for us, I would have my water down to about 42 degrees in the morning, and it would be up over 70 degrees, 75 plus in the afternoon without insulation. After I built my Cold Plunge version 1.0, I would have that water at 42 degrees in the morning, and then in the afternoon with insulation, I kept it right around 50 to 55 degrees. So it made a big difference overall. So with that, there's a number of different options out there for insulating your cold plunge. The two that I would just want to touch on that I recommend staying away from are any sort of fiberglass insulation that's meant to go between studs on a wall or in an attic space or anything like that. Even though they might claim that they're like mildew or mold resistant, there's going to be condensation with your tank. And with that fiberglass insulation is only going to absorb that water. In my mind, that's just kind of a breeding ground for mold or just, a whole bunch of yuck that could happen. The second type of insulation that I would stay away from is the reflective silver wrapping type insulation that you see. I don't have personal experience with this one, but when looking at it, I just know from my experience that it's not going to do anywhere close to as good a job as either rigid foam board or spray foam insulation. Which brings me to my two recommended types, which you guessed it, are the rigid board insulation and the spray foam. So that begs the question, which one should you use? As I stated earlier, condensation is going to happen. Whether or not you're using a steel tank, a Rubbermaid plastic tank, a bathtub, whatever it is, the thing that's holding your water is going to sweat when the temperature is warm. If you use foam insulation board, it will help keep that water cold. It will not help with condensation. If you're keeping your cold plunge in your garage or outside and you don't mind having water puddle up underneath it and kind of run off wherever gravity takes it, then just use the foam board insulation and you'll be fine. There will be condensation, there will be water buildup, but if you're cool with that, you can get away with just using the foam board insulation. Now, if you want to minimize the amount of condensation that happens, you'll need to use spray foam insulation. I've gotten cans from both Home Depot and Amazon in the past, and I'm actually working on a video that breaks down the different types, what's most cost effective, and the best way to apply it to your tank or tub, and I'll link that at the end of this video when it's ready. So if you choose to do the spray foam, you're gonna go through a lot of cans of that spray foam, which is why my personal recommendation is to use a combination of the canned spray foam and the rigid board insulation. Not only does it not sweat so much in the warmer months, but in the colder months, I actually didn't need a heater this year. We saw a stretch of -15 to -20 degree weather in Minnesota, and my tank was so well insulated with the combination of those two that my water, just by the pump running and the friction through the plumbing system, not only did my water not freeze, but it actually stayed in the mid to upper 40s during majority of the winter. So, in conclusion, stay away from anything that can absorb or hold on to water. Look for closed cell spray foam or rigid board insulation. And if you don't mind having condensation or sweating from your tank, you can get away with just building a box from that rigid board and you'll be just fine. You'll have water there, but your cold plunge will stay colder longer. Again, my next video is going to be all about canned spray foam, which ones to use, how to get the most bang for your buck, and the best way to apply it. So check that out on my channel when it's ready.